Disclaimer: this content discusses suicide and contains mature psychological themes. It is a speculative, fictionalized exploration of astrological patterns and psychological torment, not a legitimate diagnostic tool. Suicide is a complex tragedy involving profound mental health struggles, societal pressures, and individual circumstances. It should never be sensationalized. Astrology does not predict or cause suicide. If you or someone you know is struggling, please contact the 988 Suicide and Crises Lifeline for US and Canada by dialing 988 or seek help from a mental health professional. The following is a creative, dark, and fictional exercise in narrative advanced astrology, rated NC-17 for intense thematic content. Again, this is for mature audiences only, 18 plus, 21 plus. Thank you. So, in this video, we're going to be talking about suicide seen via natal charts. First, I'm going to be talking about Sylvia Plath. She was born October 27th, 1932. And really quick. Okay. She was born October 27th, 1932, and died February 11th, 1963. Here is her natal chart signature. The Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Capricorn, with Saturn, restriction, depression conjunct her ascendant in Aquarius, and square her Mars-Pluto conjunction in Cancer, intense buried rage turned inward. Most critically, her 8th house of death, transformation, and the psyche is ruled by Mercury, mind, in Libra, which is squared by a crushing conjunction of Uranus, the sudden, shocking, and Neptune, dissolution, escape, in her 12th house of secrets, isolation, and self-undoing. The subject's chart is a pressure cooker of psychic intensity, the moon in austere Capricorn, weighed down by Saturn at the gate of identity, speaks to a deep frozen despair, a feeling of carrying an impossible burden. The Mars-Pluto in Cancer isn't a weapon wielded, but a poison ingested. A fury so deep it can only consume the host. The genius and the curse came from the Mercury-Neptune-Uranus configuration. This gave her the transcendent, hallucinatory literary voice, Mercury-Neptune, that could articulate despair like no other, but the Uranus square wired it to a detonator. Transits on the date of her death show a literal alignment. Transiting Sun, the self conjunct her natal Saturn at her ascendant, the ultimate annihilation of identity under the weight of despair. The Moon, her emotional body, was in her natal 8th house, completing a final fatal cycle. It was not a star-written mandate, but a celestial mirror of a perfect storm, the psychological architecture for a brilliance that could perceive its own annihilation as a final potent act of control in a life felt to be uncontrollable. So these are very important placements for a few different reasons. Sun's in Scorpio, Moon in Capricorn with Saturn, conjunct her ascendant in Aquarius, and square her Mars-Pluto conjunction in Cancer. Her 8th house is ruled by Mercury in Libra, which was squared by a conjunction of Uranus and Neptune in her 12th house. Now I'm going to talk about Kurt Cobain, someone that is talked about frequently, almost too much for my liking, because as a black woman, in a detransition black woman at the age of 20 years old, my life has been all over the place, and I needed a role model. I needed someone to look up to, and I didn't get that. And there's a lot of people that are not of color, and they get to have as many role models as they want to. And what I mean by that is their stuff is always in the media, the big media, everywhere we go. The people in power are not seen to be of color. And that is my strong opinion. And I don't care who disagrees. It's what I see. And especially, I look at all the views on Nirvana's live performances, and I'm like, wow, billions and millions, millions and billions, whatever. I'm just like, holy sheep shit. All Kurt did was pick up a guitar and learn to play it. Which, if you know Radiohead, their first album, Pablo Honey, their first album ever by Radiohead, have a song on that album titled Anyone Can Play Guitar. Anyone can play guitar. And I even watched KRS Astrology, this Vedic astrology YouTuber. He says, the reason people are so poor, really, and can't afford anything, is because most people either worship a god that doesn't exist, or they think of celebrities as gods. That's it. They don't know how to think of themselves as a god. So that's your own issues, people, that you have to figure out, because if you can praise somebody that you have never met, fundamentally, what is going on with you? Were your parents there? Were your parents in your life? Anyways. So Kurt Cobain was born, and no shit to Kurt Cobain, like, that's not where I was trying to go with that either. I was simply stating a fact, in my opinion, that there's Caucasian media everywhere I look, and it's been that way since I was a kid. And racism has been everywhere. So, anyways, I do like Kurt's music, and I like D7, I like Serve the Servants, Heart-Shaped Box. There are a few Nirvana songs I like, and there's a few Nirvana songs I don't like. He has a song called Rape Me, which in my opinion was just him expressing his repressed homosexuality. And then, his live performances where he's dressing up as a girl and all these things. It's just my own opinions. Now, I have very strong spiritual, political beliefs. I don't give a fuck who judges me either. I don't give a fuck. That's the thing about me. I don't care anymore. So Kurt was born February 20th, which is really funny because that's literally, 6 days before your girl. My birthday's coming up. So he was born in 1967 and he died April 5th, 1994. Obviously, he had the sun in Pisces, conjunct Neptune in the first house of self. He had moon in Aries squared by Pluto in Virgo. A catastrophic T-square involving his Ketu in Libra in the 6th house of daily health, opposing Uranus in the 12th house of hidden enemies and self-undoing, both squaring the Sun-Neptune conjunction. Ruler of his 8th house is Venus in Aries, a violent aesthetic. Interesting. And I'm not going to elaborate on what I feel, how he died, but anyways, it's just interesting that the ruler of his 8th house is Venus in Aries. And we watched publicly his marriage with Courtney Love fall apart. So the subject didn't just feel the world's pain. His Piscean Sun Neptune dissolved its boundaries, letting it all flood in with no filter. This is the chart of an empathic Sieve. Excuse me. The Aries moon yearned for pure, authentic action, but was perpetually poisoned by Pluto's microscopic focus on personal failure and impurity. The chronic stomach pain, which he talked about quite a bit, was a psychosomatic manifestation. The T-square is the blueprint, a karmic pressure, Ketu, to please, to balance, Libra in the grind of work and health, clashing violently with the need for anarchic freedom. Uranus in the 12th house, alternating at its very core identity, Sun. Transits at the end show Mars, action and violence, crossing his ascendant and triggering this T-square, while Saturn, depression, ending sat directly on his natal moon. The romanticization of a burnout rather than fade away is pure Venus-ruled 8th house in Aries. A sudden aestheticized violent end to the unbearable sensitivity. The shotgun was a brutal conductor for a symphony of psychic noise that had become untenable. Now I want to talk about Robin Williams. So I'm going to switch to a little more lighter color. If you don't know who Robin Williams was, he was a comedian. He was in a bunch of different movies. I think my favorite Robin Williams movie is Jumanji. Honestly, if you've never seen it, I'd recommend it. I'm not. Hang on a second. Jumanji. Okay. So he was born July 21st, 1951, and he died August 11th, 2014. So, what did Robin Williams have? Well, he had a staggering Gemini stellium, Sun, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter in the 5th house of performance, creativity, and humor. So, that makes perfect sense. But opposite this, glittering manic congregation is Saturn and Sagittarius in the 11th house, demanding a crushing seriousness behind the philosophy of joy. Most critically, this is Moon in Pisces in the 8th house, conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer, and square Pluto and Leo, an ocean of empathetic psychic pain connected to a core of volcanic pride swallowing turmoil. The 6th house of health is ruled by Scorpio, with Mars there, indicating a fierce hidden battle within the body. This chart is the ultimate paradox, the need to generate limitless light, Gemini 5th house, while carrying a bottomless well of darkness, Pisces Moon 8th. The comedy was a solar-powered exorcism. The Saturn opposition meant every laugh came with a karmic tax of profound loneliness and a sense of responsibility. His final act was not one of sudden depression, but of a slow, insidious neurological siege, ruled by that 6th house Scorpio Mars, against a mind that was his instrument, his identity, his prison. Transits at the time show Saturn, loss, limitation, transiting his 8th house of death. Conjunct his natal Chiron, the ultimate inescapable confrontation with the wound he had spent a lifetime healing in others. The method, asphyxiation, speaks to the 8th house Pisces' desire to simply seize, to return to the source, to end the relentless cognitive siege. It was an act of terrifying logic from a disease that was systematically dismantling the very genius that defined him. Next, I want to talk about Marilyn Monroe. She was born June 1st, 1926, and died August 4th, 1962. So, she had a Sun in Gemini conjunct Mercury, which is the mutable, adaptable mind, in the 10th house of career and public persona. Squarely opposed by a Moon in Sagittarius in the 4th house of roots and endings, a desperate need for philosophical truth and freedom, forever at odds with her manufactured chattering image. Grand Cross of immense tension, Venus in Cancer, need for nurturing, opposite Pluto in Capricorn, power, destruction, both square to that Sun, Mercury, and Moon. Opposition. So, 8th house ruler is Mars in sensitive, self-sacrificing Pisces. The subject was a ghost in a dazzling machine. The Grand Cross created a constant, inescapable feedback loop of tension between who she was, Moon, who she portrayed, Sun, who she loved, Venus, and the predatory systems that controlled her, Pluto. Mars in Pisces in the 6th house suggests her vitality was drained, her will dissolved in the daily grind of being, Marilyn. The death, ruled by overdose, Pisces, Neptune themes, is shrouded in mystery, but the astrological climate speaks of a profound dissolution. Transits show Neptune, drugs, confusion, oblivion, exactly conjunct her natal Sun, the total erasure of identity. Saturn, loneliness, consequences was squaring her natal Venus-Pluto opposition, crushing any hope of nurturing or genuine power. It was less a clear decision than a final foggy surrender in a golden cage where the self had long been a ghost, whispering through a fame that felt like annihilation. Finally, I just want to exclaim some things. So these reports are not vindications, predictions, or explanations. They are maps of internal weather systems in which a perfect, terrible storm founded and formed itself, The stars do not compel, which I've said in my other videos. They reflect. The tragedy is always earthly, psychological, and human. Remember the art. Fight the stigma and offer a hand to those in the storm. That is the end of my reports of suicide seen via natal charts, and I will see you in the next one to teach you more. Thank you for watching.